I'm TJ and I'm a clown that draws. I am an avid dolls enjoyer. What's a doll? Well, my friend, let me introduce you to the world of daily puzzles. You know, Wordle, the daily 5-letter word game. Buddy, that is just the tip of the iceberg. You've got connections, the mini, strands, which I hate with a passion, Food Guesser, Bandle, Flag Doku, Game Doll, and the list goes on and on and on. Whatever area interests you, there's probably a daily puzzle for it, though the quality varies. My boyfriend and I have a little routine of solving a couple of these puzzles every night before bed. One night, as we were playing, I thought to myself, these would actually make really good character design prompts. And that idea proceeded to fester in my mind for the following weeks until I actually sat down and tried to do something with it. So I sat my boyfriend down and asked him to pretty please screen record our hardcore puzzle solving session of the day, and then just ran with it. I didn't want to have a billion different prompts to choose from, so I stuck with the New York Times dailies. Wordle, strands, unfortunately it's part of the rotation, connections, and the mini crossword. The solved puzzles had a couple of themes in common, which doesn't happen that often. You had the word tooth for Wordle, impish as the theme for strands with words like pixie, sprite, and fairy, conserve, smooth, gambling, and words before fingers as the groups for connections, and finally the mini had words like Oral-B, watch, and belt, just to name a few. After writing them all down and looking at them for a bit, a very clear picture started forming in my head. A retro, gambling, tooth fairy. I know, you should explore different options before going with the first thing that pops into your mind, but in my defense, this sounded both really fun and also really funny. With this in mind, I made a little inspoboard for the vibes of the character. I knew I wanted her to have like big glasses, big hair, gold teeth, and also to look a little shady. She's basically a fae who gambles to win her opponent's teeth. Don't ask me what she does with them. I don't think the world is ready for that knowledge. I started off sketching in Procreate to get a rough idea for shapes and silhouette, and also what elements I wanted to include. I wanted to give her a retro vibe, because in my head, that's what immediately comes to mind when I think of gambling. So I went with bell-bottom trousers and also a big fur jacket. A character design choice I'm absolutely obsessed with at the moment is open and somewhat like disheveled shirts, because I think it communicates this swagger, for lack of a better term, but at the same time, it makes the character look a little bit like someone's weird loser uncle who smokes 50 packs a day. I was initially only going to do a full body for her, but I couldn't help myself and drew out some little expressions as well. I wanted to include some more buggy elements in her design aside from the wings, so I thought her glasses could act a little bit like bug eyes and squash and stretch when she emotes. And I also made the hair coming out of her bun look a little bit like bug antenna. I just really like bugs. I moved to Photoshop to do the portrait sketches, the line work, the coloring, and the rendering. I do really like Procreate, but I've only recently started using it again after like a huge bout of just not using the program, and I've seemingly just completely forgotten how to render in it. I used to use Clip Studio religiously, but I've had to exclusively use Photoshop at work, and that kinda ended up bleeding into me using Photoshop for my personal art practice as well. I work as a game artist, so unfortunately Photoshop is the industry standard. I think it's an okay program, but between the predatory pricing, subscription bullshit, and just the numerous amount of bugs, random crashes, and the AI feature spam, I much prefer Clip Studio. I love the line work fill tool and the crunchy like analog brushes I have in Clip Studio, so I do need to like get back into the habit of working in Clip instead. I had a lot of fun with just adding more stuff to her design, the bulky rings, the little pocket watch, as well as like different textures and patterns for each article of clothing. I wanted to look a bit tacky and extravagant, kind of like going for a bit of a maximalist look, while still making sure that the design looked cohesive. If it wasn't for the gambling chip and the gold teeth, I'd say she could also pass for like the owner of a rundown bowling alley. For her colors, I wanted her to feel very retro, and I feel like this combo of browns, orange, and teal really achieved that. I'm usually quite indecisive about colors, but I managed to decide on these pretty quickly after seeing them all together. I did make some minor changes after getting feedback from some friends. I made her shoes a dark brown instead of orange, and I made her hair a bit darker for more contrast. One of my goals this year is to work on more personal projects, and also I want to be more consistent with making art for myself. Like I said, I work as a full-time game artist, so it's a bit challenging for me sometimes coming home after drawing all day and then drawing some more. I'm also trying to combat this perfectionist mindset I have because lately, when I've been getting home and thinking of like sitting down and doing art, there's this little voice in my head thinking, what's the point if you don't end up with a finished portfolio project? Which is, let's be honest, super unhealthy and a very unachievable goal to have, and honestly counterproductive. I want to get back to making art more casually, if that makes sense. Just drawing something for fun and being able to think to myself, good enough, and just moving on to the next thing. So, here I am, making silly little YouTube videos for my own entertainment and sense of fulfillment. I didn't bother with making the lines perfect, shading everything, tightening up all the layers, and all that jazz. I just worked on this when I had some free time, and then stopped when I wasn't having that much fun anymore. I did have a moment of thinking, well, maybe I should shade the portraits as well. But to be honest, rendering is one of my least favorite parts of making art, and I am a little proud of myself for taking a step back and just going, I don't wanna. As an aside, I do actually want to work on developing a better and more enjoyable rendering workflow, but that's a problem for future me. I'm hoping I can stick with this rhythm of making more art for fun and putting less pressure on myself. And if you have any character design challenge suggestions or just art challenges in general, I would love to hear from you. I also had a lot of fun with the composition and design for the background of her character sheet, if you will. I'm trying to make it look retro, but also a bit analog, while not clashing too much or taking attention away from her design. I had a bit of a blank when it came to naming her. I wanted it to be short, snappy, and not too fantastical. Although she is a fairy, she doesn't really look like a Tinkerbell, So I reached out to some friends, and after a bit of back and forth, my friend Edu, who's also an artist here on YouTube, by the way, and you should check him out, and I'll leave his link in the description, he suggested Nora for her name. And I thought it fit really, really well, and also I thought it was funny that it means mother-in-law in my native language, which is Portuguese. I'm not sure I'd want her as my mother-in-law, but I guess it depends if you're on her good side or not. And here she is, your local tooth gambling fae, Nora. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out, and I had a lot of fun with it. I hope watching and listening to my art process was enjoyable, and any suggestions for future videos or challenges are more than welcome. I'll see you in my next video, and remember, stay silly!